He's a prolific poet and playwright. He has an abundant capacity for love and anger. In 2004, in an interview, he said, "If you care too much about Singapore, first it'll break your spirit, and finally it'll break your heart." He's known as Singapore's enfant terrible. In French, it means a person who behaves in a controversial manner. Alfian Sa'at, welcome to Inconvenient Questions.
Thank you so much, Viswa.
I'm a great admirer of your work, especially of your plays. In particular, I absolutely enjoyed Cooling Off Day and Merdeka, which is more recent.
Yeah.
I found your plays really thought-provoking, insightful, evocative, and certainly provocative. But there's something else that I've been wanting to ask you. You come across as someone who is very angry almost all the time, and full of angst.
Right.
Did something happen in your life? I don't find that many reasons to be so angry with life and so angsty. But that's how you come across.
Sure.
Why?
Yeah. So I would say that's one of the hazards of being a writer, actually, in a sense that, if you look at me, if you're having this conversation right now, Viswa, I think you can tell that I'm actually quite a soft-spoken person. I'm not this loud, angry, fuming person that otherwise some of my works, fire. Right. Yes. Yeah. Might suggest, and in many ways, I think as writers, we capture a particular sentiment. It's always a snapshot of something at a certain moment in time. And of course, because you write it out, because you express it and it's shared, etc., and people read it, then that somehow becomes something that is supposed to encapsulate who you are. But obviously, we are complex individuals who are also full of contradictions. I might say something in one poem, and there's another poem that will say something else, because these are things that capture different things that I'm feeling at different points of time in my life.
That sounds like schizophrenia. Some people would describe it as schizophrenia.
Or someone would say inconsistency, right?
Is that part of the definition of being an artist?
I think it's a definition of being a human being, Viswa. Right? That we might have certain principles, of course, but there'll be times in which we might express things in, let's say, a more melancholic way. There are times when we are angry, and I do think all those are like really aspects of what it means to be human.
So what you're saying is an artist is an extension of a human being in that sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, but you do realize that people have come to view you in a certain way. Not people in the artistic circles, right? The art scene, people outside, the regular blokes, because you're not regular. Most people are not as melancholic. Most people don't write poems that have a title, Singapore, You Are Not My Country. How many people actually write that? And I must admit, the first time I read that, I said, what the hell is this guy up to? Because we've been on panels before.
Sure.
We've been on panels before, and you came across to me as someone who's passionately Singaporean, who is patriotic, almost to a fault, patriotic almost to a fault. And then when I saw the title of your poem, Singapore, You Are Not My Country, I said, honestly, at that point, I said, maybe this guy has created an image for himself, and now he's struggling to live up to that image of being modern day Hamlet.
Yeah. So, no, what I will say is that there is a body of work that I've created, and that is one poem. So obviously, it's fair to say that that's a poem that's very difficult to live down. It is a poem that I had written when I was 21 years old. I was reading a lot of beat poetry, people like Allen Ginsberg, for example. So as a young writer, you're always wanting to try on different voices, right? So this was a part of me which is like, I love, for example, Ginsberg's poem Howl, which begins with, I saw the best minds of my generation starving, hysterical, naked. So I was thinking, wow, this is that kind of diction, that's the energy in it, the fever in that writing. I want to somehow replicate it in my own writing. I want to try on that voice. But that doesn't necessarily mean,
are these poems a reflection of your true sentiment, or are they just art pieces? Are they just pieces of fine art that you're experimenting? Because that's important. That's important. Because when I read these poems from you as a poet, I believe that the sentiments expressed are yours.
Yes.
But
no, absolutely.
I'm getting the sense that you're just experimenting with words, and the sentiments reflected may not be really yours.
Yeah. No, obviously, as a poet, as a writer, I stand by what I've written. At the same time, also, it's one poem. Not every single poem that I've written expresses those same things in those particular ways. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And also, like, very recently, when I've been working as a resident playwright with Rise, I think people would be surprised to know, for example, that this is the same person who writes all these family-friendly pantomimes. So I've done fairy tales, I've done Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and Monkey Goes West, and Mama White Snake. And families and children have watched these shows, and they're not angry. You walk out of them feeling like, you've had a warm, fuzzy hug as well. So I might sound a little bit defensive, but I'm saying that there's an entire corpus of work that I've written.
But the work that you're well known for, all have political
define me.
Yeah, that define you, have political undertones.
Sure.
Very clearly, and I think and let's face it, Alfian, that's the way you're wired. By the way, how old are you? I mean, you said you wrote that when you were 21.
21, yes.
You must be no more than 25 now.
No. I mean, that's very flattering, Viswa, but I'm 43 this year, so I'm double the age of that guy who wrote those poems.
So you're pretty well preserved.
Yeah. Well. I mean,
at least physically.
I think it's the tropical weather, it's the humidity and all that, so we don't dry out so fast.
You should tell me the secret later, okay? Tell me what kind of ointments you use.
You're looking good yourself, Viswa.
Why do you think I've been asking for all this while? Come on, you took so long to return the compliment.
to give you a beauty tip. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So everybody knows, or most Singaporeans know, what happened in Yale-NUS last year, right? I don't want to go into the details, but basically what happened is, Alfian, you were an adjunct instructor for an arts module. It was called Dialogue and Dissent in Singapore, I believe. It was part of Yale-NUS College Week 7, Learning Across Boundaries program. Yes? That is what it is. So you were initially engaged and then subsequently disengaged.
Yes.
If there's such a word. You were out. And there was a lot of controversy as to the motivation behind letting you go. And there was quite a bit of to and fro, and Minister Ong Ye Kung, Education Minister Ong Ye Kung, on the 7th of October last year, 2019, said in Parliament in response to a question, he said, if I may quote him, Mr. Alfian Sa'at himself in 1998 wrote a poem entitled "Singapore, You Are Not My Country." Let me quote some lines to give you a flavor of his thinking, that this is what Minister Ong said. Singapore, I assert, you are not a country at all. Do not raise your voice against me. I am not afraid of your anthem. These are the lines that Minister Ong quoted you saying. Now, and then he says, how can you call yourself a country? Oh, sorry, you said this. How can you call yourself a country? You terrible hallucination of highways and cranes and condominiums, 10 minutes drive from the MRT.
Yes.
But I'm more. I'd like to draw attention to the first part, the first part of the poem that Minister quoted. Singapore, I assert, you are not a country at all. Do not raise your voice against me. I am not afraid of your anthem. Now that doesn't sound like it's the voice of a patriot.
Right. Okay. So that's only half of that entire line. I am not afraid of your anthem. It continues. So there's no full stop of I'm not afraid of your anthem. It says I'm not afraid of your anthem, even though the lyrics are still bleeding from my sapless heart.
Yeah, it says that.
Right.
So what is I know poets generally don't like to interpret your own poem, but indulge me. Right? What does this mean? What did you mean by this?
This means that because the anthem is so engraved inside me, right? I am telling this entity called Singapore, don't use your state symbols, or don't use your anthem against it, because this is the thing that I'm actually quite vulnerable against. This is the thing that I know, I mean, I'm susceptible to. Just listening to the anthem will make me emotional. So I'm basically warning this entity, this country, no, don't use these things to sort of like emotionally blackmail me, because the anthem is so dear, because I still get goosebumps when I listen to it, because it has this effect. So don't try to like pull these levers and push my buttons in this way. So that for me was really interesting. I mean, how can you sort of like misinterpret that particular line by cutting it in half and then just saying, I'm not afraid of your anthem.
And
This
you
is a
say,
kind of
and you say,
bravado.
although the
Yeah.
lyrics are still bleeding from the bark of my sapless heart.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So I guess I'm saying that it's that anthem is so engraved in my heart. It's like, for example, like if you engrave something on a rubber tree, for example, and then those things are bleeding, right? The sap or the rubber is bleeding from it. So I'm just making I suppose a kind of metaphorical comparison between a heart and that tree. And I'm saying I'm sapless because so a lot of that line is about a certain kind of bravura, a kind of like, you know what, I'm immune to your entreaties. I'm not susceptible to your anthem, whatever, but actually I am. So I think this poem, to be fair, I mean, it requires a certain close reading to see that actually many of the things that I'm saying is I'm trying to put up a front. I'm trying to say, no, Singapore, I'm done with you. Don't try to like appeal to me. Don't try to seduce me. Don't try to draw me in with, for example, your anthem and all these things that I actually love, that
Why
I
does the
deny.
anthem, what is it about the anthem, our national anthem, that makes you so emotional? What is it?
Yeah. Because I think, I grew up with it like so many of us, right? And it's one of those things about patriotism. I think you can't explain it. You can't explain why when it's sung, like for example, when people win medals, etc., you just have this visceral reaction, and you don't know whether. I mean, if you're gonna be cynical, you might say it's because of indoctrination. It's because when you were young, it's kind of implanted in you. But at the same time, also, it's just a reaction that I can't help. Yeah, when I hear it, maybe also because it's my own mother tongue language. Maybe I also have that extra connection to it. But also the fact that it was written by Zubir Said, who's an amazing composer, and I love his works for Category Studios, for example. So I knowing all these kinds of backgrounds, I mean, all those things just come together.
And
for me.
I can relate to that, Alfian, because it's not my mother tongue, but every time I listen to the anthem, something happens inside me.
Right.
The same emotions I get every time I listen to the pledge.
Right.
Which is why I spoke about the pledge, right? I mean, so I can relate to it. I can relate to it. My eyes well up at certain points when I listen to the pledge. My eyes well up when I listen to certain lines of the pledge at certain times. Maybe I feel vulnerable about those things. But how important is it as a Singaporean, as a citizen of any country, for you to feel this pain, for you to suffer the process, for you to, I mean, do you need to feel this level of pain for you to be a citizen?
The thing is, I feel that we can all be patriotic in our own different ways. Yeah, and I know this might be a controversial statement because people might say, oh, but we should have a shared commons, right? We should have common space. I think this is something that Eng Hen actually spoke about recently, because some people are saying we shouldn't have the fun facts, etc. But he says, no, we the common space, it mustn't shrink. But for me, it's not about shrinking the common space. It's about, can we also think about what's the stuff we can put into this common space, so there are more things for people to choose from to express their love of the country. So let's say someone doesn't want to watch NDP on TV, but this someone has got 3 shelves of Singaporean literature. Or another someone can name you his 10 favorite Singaporean films, So I'm rather than thinking about, oh, we all have to celebrate the 3 things inside this common space, let's fill it with like 3,000 things. So everyone can find a way, a very personal, invested way to love the country.
Do you feel that in our society we are trying too hard to define and label?
Yes, yes, I do think so. And I think it is actually precisely narrowing when we say you can only love the country in these particular ways, you know. And if you don't, if you're against fun facts, if you're against fireworks, etc., then you are disloyal, then you don't love this country enough. I think that
Is
is
it
the
possible?
shrinking.
Is it
Yeah,
possible, stretching that point, is
sure.
it possible to love your country so much that you hate it?
Wow. So what is it? Mark Twain he said, right? Like loyalty to country always, loyalty to government only when they deserve it, right? So I
Yeah.
think this is where that kind of a love-hate relationship comes in, you know. And I think it's I think a more authentic position when it comes to patriotism. You must have this struggle in you. There
Yeah.
must be the things that you hate about your country because you love it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you know, Alfian, I'll share this with you.
sure.
A friend of mine asked me several years back, you know, whether I would leave the country. I said I have never even
Mm,
thought about it for a moment, leaving the
right.
country.
Mm,
And then I paused and reflected, and I told him, I will. I can imagine me leaving this country when
mm-hmm.
I don't see it as my home. I will
Okay.
not be able to
Mm,
live a day longer in this country if I don't see it as my home, if I
right.
cease seeing
Mm,
it as my home.
mm, mm, mm,
Sometimes you love the country so much that you can't stand the pain when you
right.
see things go in a way that you can't accept.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So I mean we are running out of time, but I just want to end by talking about this because what you said is
Yep.
very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we must, as we evolve as a nation, should we not be given the opportunity to love or hate our
Yep.
country uh,
Yep.
in a very passionate way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or do you think, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think we definitely must make room for people to have a critical and loving relationship with the country. I think it's what Tommy Koh mentioned, right?
yeah,
People
yeah,
who are loving critics of
yeah? You
Singapore.
said he actually described you as, I regard him as a loving critic of Singapore. But Tommy
Right.
Koh,
Yeah.
Professor Tommy Koh also said, if I may
Mm-hmm.
quote him, he said,
Sure.
I feel that I should defend him at this moment when he must feel discouraged and
Yeah.
worried and friendless.
Mm,
How often do
yeah.
you feel friendless, my friend?
I actually, I mean, the one of the things being an artist or a writer is you never feel alone. You might feel so lonely when you are writing, right? Because it is a very solitary act. But the very idea that your book is lying on someone's shelf somewhere out there and is a complete stranger you have never met, I think that gives a sense of consolation. It gives a sense that actually you are connected to more people than you think. So I've never really felt friendless at all. And when people were sharing the poem in its entirety, um, Singapore, You're Not My Country, as a way, I think, of trying to express their solidarity with me, I felt I had many, many, many friends. Yeah.
I think you do. And I think you have
True.
a lot more admirers as well.
Thank you, Vishwa.
I hope you'll continue doing what you do because
Thank you.
I strongly believe that as we evolve,
Mhm.
we need different voices with passion.
Thank you.
Alfian Sa'at, thank you very much for making time to
Thank
be
you
with
very much.
Inconvenient Questions.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.